Okay, your filmmakers. JULE Campbell and cinematographer Gregory Gerhard. Please, have a seat. And full disclosure, there is a relationship there. This would be a husband and wife team. Fascinating film and a lot to get to about it. But before we start on the film, I wanted to ask you, because in your bio it talks about how you started out in theater, and I gather your husband did as well.
Yeah. I was a theater major. I was a playwright. Oh, Christie, you're here.
Oh, Christie's here. And Christie Brinkley, swimsuit model, Christie Brinkley.
You snuck in.
I made it. Yay. I'm sorry, I went to the wrong cinema. I went to East Hampton.
Oh, my God. Oh, wow.
And I live right next to this, so over here. But
I'm so glad you made it.
Sorry, I came
Oh,
in
my
late.
God. I'm glad you're here. I'll send
But
you.
I loved it.
Thank you. I'll send you the coffee so you can see the beginning. Yeah, I started in theater. I was a theater major. I was a playwright. And I got into documentary with, I don't know if you all remember Ann Bass, the philanthropist. I was working for her boyfriend, who was an artist, and they knew I had a film background, and I became a associate producer on their film, and I was able to use like the story skills I learned from writing plays. I was really into story structure and got addicted to documentary, and it paid a little bit more than theater, not much more, but a little bit more, so I stuck with it.
You said you had a film background. What was the film background?
I was like a film minor, so I was a theater major in college and film minor, and then once I did that first film, I got addicted, and then I actually went and got my master's in documentary film in my 50s because I just wanted to know what I was talking about. I wanted to know what like the cameras were, the technical parts. I didn't want to be mansplained to on set. So I felt really good about that.
That's a good idea. But you also started out producing, not directing.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
how did you go from producing to directing?
I started directing, well, I was just approached. I started directing little things for my own, just to practice. And then I was approached about a story with the basketball player Kenny Anderson. And I decided I wanted to direct it, not just produce it. And Kenny and I just had like this great rapport. I grew up on Long Island. I came from a family that loved basketball. Kenny and I were like from the same generation. And that's kind of how I really, really learned. That was my first feature. And again, like writing plays and working in theater and finding authentic moments, finding the authenticity that you kind of try to find in theater, and also just that story structure. I think just studying story, I've studied writing and story for like 30 years. And you really need it even more in documentary because you can't write the story. I mean, it's real life, so you can't make anything up. You have to figure out how to take the audience on a journey, and you still have to use that same structure.
Well, that's perfectly evident in this film because there's really a lot of authentic story moments in that crystallize what's going on here, and it's very clearly two different films. There's this really loving, wonderful portrait of a woman who's aging, and a fascinating woman who's aging, and what she's going through, and the personal relationships that are there in that family context. At the same time as it's a really fascinating and in-depth story about this thing that is a cultural phenomenon, has been for many years, and has been a flashpoint over the years, and the things she has to say about it, the case she makes, and the relationships between her and the models, and how she is a mother to them and a protector of them, and also bringing out the best in them and sending them out into the world in a different way. So there's two films there, and they coalesce around the relationships that she's had with the models in the past as they come to her as she's aging, and what that means to them. So the playwriting, so the structural story things, So did you set out to make that film, those two films, those two threads,
No.
and weave them together?
I
How
mean,
did it come about?
I always wanted to make a film on Julie, like ever since I started in documentary, but it was just never the right time, and she wasn't ready. And then during the pandemic, we moved in with Bruce and just kind of helped him because he was living alone on the farm. And Julie was just ready to tell her story, and she gained agency by telling me her story. But she was also, she had so many words of wisdom on aging, and she was so authentic, and so everything she was saying was beautiful. I was just learning from her, and I'd never seen that side of her in the many years I'd known her. And I think she wanted to write a book. She never wrote a book, and she just really wanted to tell her story. So yeah, it was a challenge just to say, okay, I want both of these in, and how do we do it? But I felt like hopefully it was just, her memories brought, I try to activate everything into the present. So that really, I just was hoping like where she was now really helped us understand what she did then.
And so as she's telling her story, and then you started to reach out to the models and to the other things and get the sort of archival interviews that you did. So what was that process like?
Well, it was amazing. Like with Christie, I mean, like I found Julie, as you could see, was a pack rat. And I literally found that Super 8. I tripped over it in the dining room. Oh, wow. And I had to, digitize it. And then when I digitized it, I'm like, oh my God, this is never before seen footage of you and Cheryl. And it was gorgeous. And it was what Julie, I don't know if you, if it brought back memories or.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't even remember where that was taken. I think, obviously, I remember the Africa trip really well, but the earlier stuff, I think it was like Mexico and Florida or something. I don't even know, but yeah, it was great. That was great footage.
Yeah, it was really exciting because there's so much footage that's published of you and those photos. And then I found she kept everything because she worked from home. She would take all her work home, and I think a lot was because she wanted the freedom to pick what she wanted and to hide things from some of the photographers or from some of the editors. So then, I mean, we found like 100,000 slides. And
she was so organized. The thing that impressed me most was she would spend a huge part of the year traveling to find the locations where she wanted to do the shoot. And then she sourced every bathing suit in the world over and had them all, and then knew the exact one, like that scene with Carol Law when she said, how did she know this boat? I constantly had that same feeling with her. It was like she would drag, and she couldn't see distance well. And like one time she was dragging these two huge suitcases in the Seychelles Islands, on a very remote island. And she says, over here, we're going to come, you can get dressed between these boulders over here. And she's dragging like this, right? Dragging the things bent over. And I come running in, and there was a giant spider web above her that I ran right into and had the spider on me. And it was pretty funny. But yeah, so it brought back a lot of memories.
You told me there are so many fun. That's a hard thing about doing a documentary. Is like you told me like 3 hysterical stories, but I felt like the Africa trip. To me, it was like we didn't have. It's all about the footage in documentary, and we had like those amazing photos that I found of you and your daughter.
Yes,
and then,
I love those.
Yeah, and again, like we kind of. I don't think anyone's seen those. And then I love that she was talking about, just as another woman, bring your daughter. How many people...
Yes, I know. It was amazing.
Yeah, and then we had the footage, and I feel like it really showed what a shoot was like with Julie, and the way you explained it, I thought was kind of funny.
And Alexa, my daughter Alexa, who came on that trip, ended up being the youngest model ever to appear in the Sports Illustrated issue when she ran into one of the shots just very briefly, and she just struck a little, and she was running around naked on the beach, but she turned and she grabbed my leg from the back, and she sort of did this little look towards the camera, and that was considered a really scandalous picture.
Wow.
Because it was like, people were like, how could you put a child like that? You couldn't see, it was like a little baby running into the shot. But I loved it. I thought it was a great shot, and so did Julie.
Well, you bring up an interesting point, because a lot of the stuff that happened in the film, a lot of the reactions, say much more about the people that are reacting than it says about the photos and what's going on with the photos. So that's the thing. And it was clear from the interactions you had, Christie, but the other models too. Everybody that you reached out to seems to have responded in a big way, and you got such great stuff from them before they came back to see her, or before anything else. All the different commentary from all of them. And one thing that came through 100% was that she said she looked for intelligence first. And in every case, not only did that show through in the photographs, and when Elle said, "What do you see in this face?" and I was expecting her to say, "You see intelligence," because that's what made so much of the beauty beautiful, was the brightness of the people and that came out in all their interviews. How smart everybody was, how thoughtful they were, and what they thought of that experience then and what they went through. So you got so many of them. Was that an intensive labor? Took a long time?
I've walked in Julie's shoes for the past 4 years, and the most beautiful part of it is meeting the women that she's worked with. And it's going to make me cry, because everyone's genuine and authentic, and hopped on this project, no questions asked, might not have known my work, but loved Julie so much. Took blind faith in my process, which is a little different, because I don't love to sit and just do a talking head interview. I love to just spend the day with someone, and we had so much fun.
I so regret not making it out to New Jersey to see her one last time. And I found those scenes so touching and hard to. I was like, oh, please don't let me cry off all my makeup before the panel, because that was... we really loved her. We really did. She really saw things in us before we knew that they existed in us. And that's a really special quality for somebody to be able to make you feel, better about yourself.
And she knew that, because I told her that we were talking and that we were gonna... She was so happy. And I would come back and I would show her photos, and she was really, really touched and humble. You remember how humble she was. Oh. She'd probably be like, yeah. Now she would be like, why are you showing everyone this for? But yeah, I think it's, as women, for all the women to honor other women, especially right now. I'm just honored that everyone was in the film, and that we're honoring this woman who look what she did.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. I remember everybody used to talk about how her desk, she would have all the locations that she was thinking about using in the magazine, and then she would have swimsuits and the models' pictures nearby and everything. And if anybody walked into the room while all of that was exposed, she would throw her body across the desk so nobody could see any of it, because the surprise of the issue, where's it going to be, who's going to be in it, there was really a big build-up for that. I wasn't aware the first time I did it, because I had been living in Paris. And so I didn't know, and I just sort of did it. And then I started getting calls over in Paris that, oh, mon Dieu, you're in a magazine with your butt showing, I was like, what? But it was very, just sort of the side view, not risque at all. But back then it was a bit risque for back then. And then when I got the actual cover the first time, and she said something about that they were going to have a party to celebrate it and everything. And I had a different booking that day. And so I wasn't planning to go. And then I get the call, no, you're like on the cover and you have to be at Time Life or wherever they were having the big party. And so I just sort of did my hair and makeup in the car to spruce up a little bit. And the elevators opened to a whole huge room full of like everybody in the Time Life building, I guess. And it was a huge deal.
It was a huge deal. Like all the press everyone. If people weren't famous already, they were. Yeah. Right after the cover, it's
amazing.
Every shot in the film of her on the shoots, and what Christie just said about the desk and protecting all the things, it just showed how much care she put into it, to the relationships with the models, to what the scenery was, and some of the beauty of the photos. I mean, I don't care about the comments that were made. Part of the beauty was the settings and the photography. There were whole blank pages. Yes. There was a model on one side, but the setting was the rest of it. And as he said in the one shot, she's going to run forever because the page was open on the other side. And that, just the care she took with the relationships and protecting the models, it's so much care, and it showed in what she did. I want to talk a little bit about the craft of this. I want to get Greg involved. Because the shots at the at New Jersey, it was in New Jersey. Was that where the farm is? Yeah. Such a wonderful sense of place, because with all the archival footage that you had and all the interviews and all the different things, but those things in that portrait of her aging at her home, did you just set up to interview her and let the camera run, or did you went around? Because a lot of the shots of the outside and the interior that just really evoked a perfect sense of place and her in that place, as well as you going to the barn and finding a file of photos in the styrofoam cooler. Oh, wait a minute. That's
and there were like 50 of those,
exactly.
And there's more that I still have to go through.
Greg, what was shooting at that place like?
Well, we definitely have stories of the styrofoam. I'll just really quickly on that one. For the end times, if anyone remembers the old 7-Eleven styrofoam coolers, they will save everything with no moisture, no humidity for 40 plus years. Like, bad for the environment, but good for your photos. Yes, there were at least 40, 50 boxes of those. As far as sort of like, I suppose, visualizing or, filming, I mean, the first thing I have to say is definitely a team effort. There were some other DPs and cameramen as well, camera women as well. But to your original question, no, I wish we could just set up and film. But it was really much, of course, a labor of love, but also just like truly run and gun. There were many times that we were there and we didn't know something was going to happen. And Jill's like, okay, where's the camera? Where's the lav? Quick, like we're on.
Start in on a great story, and then it'd be like, get her lav on, get the camera, and also we worked with her. Like, we didn't film when she didn't want to be filmed, and there were times she was like, nope, don't film this, or we were respectful of her. But.
Well, nobody else could have made this film except for you, because of the relationship you had with her, and that kind of, every documentarian wants access and getting the access that you have, but you could have had access to that and not had the relationship that you had with her, which really opened it all up and made her. She was who she was, but you got the real picture by the fact that she's related to you. And
look, I'm very blessed. I mean, it's a complicated relationship because I've known her since I was 20, probably as you've known her, like since you were 18. And I think she's a mother figure to all of us. And the fact, like, I divorced Bruce, and I love that we're a modern family and we got through it, and we can celebrate together, and we can have this, and that's Julie. Because Julie, when I married Greg, who's my husband now, and Bruce has been at the screenings and loves it, like she sent me this ring. Like, I opened up this gift the morning of the wedding, and what class for your mother-in-law to just send you a gift when you're marrying your new husband.
I have a quick question. Did she get to see very much of the film?
No. I showed her like when she was in the hospital, I actually went and I showed her all of your messages to her, like where you're all, I asked, which a lot didn't make the film, but I asked you all to say something to her, and she loved that. So I know she didn't get to, I know, it's very sad that she,
But she knew that you were putting this all together. And
she knew, and she loved it. Like because she did want to write that book. And I felt like she, at the end of her life, she lived such a full life, and it wouldn't have been recorded. I feel like she really gained agency just telling me her stories, telling me about everything, all of you. And Walter, one of the amazing photographers, is in the audience, Walter Yost, and
Fantastic.
loved, I mean.
Hey, Walter.
there he is.
And they had you had like a 50, 60-year working relationship. But yeah, it was important for me that she knew and that she was okay with it, because I was filming her at an older age, and I didn't want, I just wanted to make sure that she was okay at all times. And it got us closer, which was nice.
Oh, yeah.
It also, in the very beginning when you started filming, she was very clear on what was going on, much
Yes.
more so.
Yeah.
And that was part of the portrait of the aging, was to see as she became less aware. But in the very beginning, she was, and the way that it was cut together with other interviews that she'd done in the past, and then this interview now, and you could sort of tell by the voice, but the mind was always the same. So it was remarkable.
Totally.
I'm so sorry we're running out of time, but I did want to give a chance to a question or two from the audience. Please, right here.
What did she do after she was forced out of Sports Illustrated?
I think she tried to do some freelance. Like I know she worked on a catalog at one point, and then she really wanted to write her book, and then she just moved to the farm, and she kind of enjoyed retirement life at that point because she was in her 70s. So I know she worked a lot. She looked amazing. I mean, she was 96 when she passed away. And, you know, she was in her 70s when she retired, which is amazing. And, so I don't, you know.
She always had the best body on the shoot. I mean, she did.
I couldn't believe when I found that Super 8 and those photos of her.
Yeah.
I mean, her body was insane.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And
go.
it was great that she would wear a bathing suit along with all of you. And it seemed like you were just so close. It was so nice. So.
Well, I'm afraid that's all the time we have, because I've got to get to the other films. But thank you so much for this wonderful film. Walter, thank you for coming out tonight. Thanks, Christy, for coming. And thanks so much for the film. Wonderful film.
Thank you so much. That was